Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar on branding. I'm excited to talk about this subject with you because I have two of our experts from our team joining me. I have Nam and Michelle joining us. So, welcome, Nam and Michelle. Thanks for making time to talk about this today. You guys do a lot of work with branding, whether it's full blown like rebrands or you are designing something and it needs to be on brand. And we're going to just go through those questions that we came up with to help people understand how to approach a rebrand and like what elements they should be thinking about when going through that process, because it can be a really daunting process for a lot of clients. They almost don't even know where to start. And so hopefully this will help those people who are viewing to just kind of feel a little bit more comfortable like going into that process. So I open this up to either one of you, but can one of you define what rebranding means to you as a designer?
I can start.
Yeah.
So I think it's an interesting question because oftentimes we encounter clients who have never been professionally branded to begin with. So they're looking to rebrand something that was never professionally branded. Um, and you have to take it in a different approach. So, like, when you have a brand that was created organically and wasn't like professionally influenced by whether that's by your team or professionals, you still have a brand. I think of it like a garden. Like, it's going to grow regardless. You can come in and you can plant things in certain places. You can have a strategy. You can have like organization, but it's going to grow either way. So um, you really have to be strategic in what you want to develop and what you want to focus on with your brand. So rebranding oftentimes means, getting back to like the nitty gritty with people and helping them understand like why they started their business in the first place, what they want customers to take away from like interacting with them, from buying their products, whatever it might be. And it really is like a very detailed and involved process, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I like your analogy as far as like it's a garden and it's going to grow. Or you could even liken it to like, you have a house and like that's your business and the yard around it, which is usually the first impression that people are going to have is your lot, like your front lot. And you could just let weeds grow and have it take over however it wants to, or you could actually like have a say in it and like plant grass or a rock garden. And yeah, you're totally right. Every single business has a brand, and it is either told by that company, and like that narrative is controlled by them, or the employees will take over that narrative. And the clients or customers will definitely like take over that narrative if there's not any structure set in place. So I really like that analogy. Nam, do you have anything that you want to add to that?
Yeah, so to me, basically, it's like a response to customer needs. It show how the company want to be or how the company is now. Actually, yeah. So I think it's a chance to create a brand that truly connects to their audiences.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I agree. From day one, as soon as you come up with your idea for your company, you have the very beginnings of a brand. So controlling that narrative from the start is really important. Um, Second question is, how can a business determine the right time to consider rebranding?
I can,
Um.
or you can go Nom.
Okay. So usually, I think it's time to rebrand if the business has changed. Maybe like new products, or they want a different audience, or a shift in the direction, or just maybe like they don't feel like their brand is fresh anymore. So yeah, rebranding helps make sure that the brand, you know, resonate what they do and how it's connect with people.
Yeah.
I think adding to that too, I fully agree with Nam. Growing with your audience, like if your audience shifts, if you had like a millennial audience and now you're shifting into a Gen Z audience, just because they're growing into the age range of your demographic, you have to change. Like you're going to have to change your messaging, your everything about your brand could shift completely. So being aware of that and recognizing if there's a need for that change.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think the stat is somewhere around like 5 to 7 years is how long a company will use a current brand, and then they'll rebrand after that. And sometimes it's a major rebrand, but sometimes it's a minor rebrand. And I think that that gets lost on people, is that they think when we say rebrand, whole new logo, whole new color palette, like it could just be the simplification of a logo. And I think we've seen that, just I know that there's like talks in the design world how logos used to be very intricate and like fine detail, like in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And then as we've gotten into the age of like computers, where um, attention spans are decreasing, and you have brands that need to be shown well on digital devices, the logos become much more simplified. And um, the voice itself, like depending on what's going on, like with the social or political climate of the world, like can dictate brand slogan. So I think those are great points. Um, and I guess Michelle, we'll start with you on this one. What are some primary goals of rebranding in your eyes, and why are they important?
Um, I think the primary goals, like those are unique to the company. Like when you're rebranding, you're going to set those goals and objectives of what you want to get out of a rebrand. I think like you just said, it could be small. It could be like making little shifts. Um, so that could just be focusing on messaging. It could just be focusing on like your vision has shifted in your company. Um, but the goal could be anything from like attracting a new audience to boosting revenue to maybe improving your customer experience or customer loyalty, like working on that. Um, those are all important because those are all parts of what shape your brand. If your brand is not just one thing, I think we'll probably nail that down by the end of this. Most people think your brand is just your logo and your website, and it's way more than that. It's really how your customer experiences you as a company and how they experience your products. And, you know, that's your focus.
Yeah, 100%. Nam, would you like to add anything to that?
Yes, yeah, that was a very good point. And I think another goal is to update the brand to meet the current standards, like ADA or WCAG compliance. Because back then, maybe there's not like much awareness compared to this day. So considering having your brand or a website, you know, have like ADA compliant is very important today. Is help ensure that everyone is included, like is accessible to everyone, and also being inclusive help people remember you and build trust and basically open the door to the wider audience.
Yeah, yeah, that's really important. I also look at it internally. I think a good reason to rebrand or to look at rebranding could just be for internal reasons, where maybe it's a startup and they were so focused on growth that they really didn't give any thought to what does it mean to be a team member of that company, and what kind of feelings do we want our team to have when they, like, quote unquote, like walk into work or log in on their computer, like when they're at home to work. Because a brand is just as important externally as it is internally. And you look at, I think of Disney and how, they will share, I call them like their legacy team members, or I think they call them cast members at the theme parks, where there's a lot of people that have worked for Disney for decades, and it's just because they love what Disney, at least Disneyland or Disney World, is all about in terms of just making someone's day special, like while they're there at the park. And I think that that is tied very directly into Disney's brand.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, sure.
I think you said you made a really good point. Like, I think branding starts internally. I don't think it's something that can be influenced from an outside source. It does if you're not paying attention and if you don't focus on it and you don't put, like we're saying, you don't shape it yourself. But it does start internally. Like if you look at Disney, for example, or any of the companies that have really strong brands, like the way that they treat their employees is what trickles down to the customers. So the customers are directly related to, like, if the employee feels supported and a part of like something really powerful in their opinion, that shows in their experience with the customer. The customer completely feels that when they are dealing with a client or dealing with employees or just dealing with the business as a whole.
Yeah. And I think to your point, like it can be influenced on the outside of the company. So if its own device, you could be basically making your brand off of the expectations of what everyone else thinks it should be rather than what you want it to be. So I think, yeah, great point. All right. Nam, this next question you can start with. How do you approach the rebranding process with our clients?
How I approach, so of course we have to listen to the client and understand their goals, their values, and their audience. Then I start designing, make sure that it's aligned with their vision, and I try to keep them involved in every step. So my goal is to make sure that it feels true to them and basically, yeah, just resonate with their audience.
Yeah. Michelle, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with everything Nam said. I think the approach that we've always taken has been really collaborative. Like, they know their business better than we do. And I feel like we're kind of just drawing those little pieces out that they maybe have overlooked because they've been in their business for so long, or, they've lost the messaging that they once had or the focus that they once had. And we're kind of drawing that out of them. And we do that through, like, we have questionnaires, we have a lot of like in-depth meetings that go through a lot of detailed questions, because I mean, we can come up with a brand, but our goal is to come up with something that's authentic to that company. And we can only do that by, basically becoming best friends with them and
Right.
getting that really collaborative approach down and making sure that there's always open communication, a lot of feedback. We always tell people, like, tell us if you don't like something, like, be honest, because that's the most important thing. We want to make sure that you're really happy with what you get at the end and that we create a really authentic brand.
Yeah, I totally agree. We do a lot of work on the front end to make sure that we're not only just listening well, but understanding. You said it at the start in terms of like the client knows their company the best, and I would change that a little bit, and I would say that they know why they started or what was the impetus of like starting the company. And I'll use Randy Peters as an example. When we met with them last year to rebrand them, we spent a lot of time just talking to them about like why did they get into the restaurant business? Why did they get into the catering business? And it boiled down to they wanted to provide an excellent experience for anyone that came in their doors. And that's ultimately like what we went with their brand, not only just in the look and feel, just like that the feeling of excellence with like that gold seal that we came up with, but their slogan as well. And I think that that is a masterful brander is someone who can pull that essence out as like the literal core DNA of like why did this company form? and let that carry out like throughout the whole brand. All right. What advice do you have for businesses considering a brand refresh? And whoever wants to start can.
I think we kind of touched on it already a little bit, but you have to be clear in like defining your goals and your objectives with a rebrand. What are you looking for? What do you hope to achieve? What do you want to change? And why do you want to change it? Like you need to be asking, it's a really long process to go through branding. And like, it's a very detailed, kind of introspective experience for clients. And it's good in the process for them to be checking in with customers or clients and getting their input too. So like being or allowing customers to be brutally honest with them and let them know like, what are you guys doing right and where can you improve? And I think those are the people that are going to matter the most when you rebrand. So listening to your customers first, I think, is really important.
Yeah, I agree. No?
Yeah, I agree with everything, but I was about to say exactly the same thing. So yeah, and I would add that like I would ask them like what they like or dislike about their current brand, because as Michelle said, you don't have to change everything. You can keep most of them too if like it's your brand, it's your company. So yeah, but small changes also make a huge impact.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all about how would it connect with your audience.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I also think looking internally, just asking the key stakeholders within the company, like what their thoughts are, and how well they feel like the brand is being executed, like internally, just to go back to what we were talking about earlier. Um, Michelle, we'll have you start with this. How does branding go beyond just a logo and colors? What other elements matter most?
I think the biggest misconception with branding is that people think it is just a logo and colors. But it's really, that's part of it. That's a pretty small part of it. It's really how you do business. It's how you make your customers feel. And that's influenced by the customer experience that you create. Like if you can have the best brand in the world visually that looks incredible, but if your customers have a bad experience time and time again, you're not going to have a brand.
Right.
Like there's plenty of like very high profile companies that have had that experience. It just, it's how you make people feel. It's you want to create an environment that represents your company values, and that starts, like we said, it starts on the internal side and trickles out. And I think when people come to us for branding, they don't realize how much detail it is and how like involved the process is. But yeah, I think if you're a company that, if you're offering a white glove service to somebody, how do you show your customers that you're putting a lot of thought into what that means? Like, how are you defining that? You really have to get very, very specific with everything.
Yeah, I agree. Nam, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, so I think it's about overall experience that people will have with the business, like the the tone of voice, customer service, or like how the website feels. Like basically it's like the impression that people will remember your brand. Like the tone of voice, do you want to look professional or like more like fun? It depends on your audience. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it also, the last part of that question is what other elements matter most. I mean, I would say the thing that matters the most is where people come in contact with your brand first. You only get one shot at a first impression. So, if you're a SaaS company and people are finding you through the website, then your website better be top notch, like on brand. And I think a lot of business owners forget that there is a visual world to our economy. or sorry, a physical world to our economy, and then there's the digital. And we are in the business of building companies' digital presence and their footprint, just like a contractor would to be building their storefront or their offices. And if the first point of contact that a customer or client has with you is a mailer, let's say, then that better be the best mailer that they see, so that that first point of contact hits the mark. Um, so that's something that I would advise any company is really, once you've come up with a new brand, put a lot of resources behind those few first touch points that a client will have, because that's going to dictate the relationship moving forward. We have a couple questions left. Next one is, and Nam, you can start with this. How can a brand effectively communicate its values to build trust with customers?
Hmm. I think the brand can build trust by being genuine, being clear, and consistent with its values, like sharing real stories, being transparent, and keeping promises to help customers. Yeah, see the brand
Yeah, I
that
agree.
they are reliable and genuine.
Yeah, like just especially in today's age, people want to know that they're working with someone who is going to do what they say they're going to do.
Yep.
Michelle, do you want to add anything?
Um, yeah, I second the consistency, and um, I think a good example of that for people to like quickly understand what we mean when we say consistency is like if you go into a Nordstrom's anywhere, you go to any different Nordstrom's, you're going to have the same experience. Like you might have a bad experience, but they're going to go out of their way to make it a good experience more than likely. You're going to be warmly greeted, you're going to have a personalized experience, and they're going to be really attentive to you. And you're not going to get that if you go into another store. You're not going to get that if you go into a Macy's, for example. Like there's a lot of companies that really put a focus on like that consistent experience for the customer. And they're the companies that do really well because you know what you're going to get. You expect a certain, and like they always achieve that level that they're putting out there.
Yeah, you're right. I think that's where all the successful franchise models come in. Is it's the same experience regardless of if you're in California or Utah or Florida. Um, that experience is the same. Um, Two more questions left. What are some low cost ways for businesses to strengthen their brand?
I think we've said it a million times already, but um, focus on your customer experience because that's free. Like you don't have to pay somebody to tell you how to do that. We all know what great customer experience is. If you can start imparting that into your employees and just continually focus on increasing that experience in different ways by listening to your customers, by handling bad experiences customers have with like the best possible approach. You're not going to please everybody, but we always say to people that like if you have if you get bad customer feedback, especially on a public platform, respond. Like you can't leave it there. That looks terrible if you just don't acknowledge it.
Right.
And you might not change their opinion, but you will change the opinion of the other people seeing how you respond to them.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I've had that conversation a lot with our clients is, yeah, you want to do right by the person that is giving you that negative feedback, but the real win in that situation is letting other people see how you handle a situation, can go a long ways in furthering their respect and their trust of your brand. Nam, do you have anything to add?
Yes, totally agree about the user experiences. And speaking of something like they can do visually too, maybe just being like consistent about you know everything like their posts on social media or their signature on their emails or their voice and tone or the offline stuff too. Maybe like their head letterhead, right? It's called. And yeah, that can help them a lot too, even though like without like paying so much on like hiring or like being like super fancy. Yeah, that's a great way to make the brand stronger.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The last question, and we'll keep it short. So this can just be one word or like one sentence. And Nam, we can start with you, and then Michelle, you can follow. What is the biggest misconception about branding that you encounter from business owners?
So Misha already said this, but the big misconception is rebranding is not just a logo.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's about everything that people will remember you as a brand,
yeah,
and they feel like they want to connect you.
yeah. Michelle?
I agree. I think instead of saying a misconception, I would say that you're going to have a brand whether you like it or not, and whether you put effort into it or not. So you're better off focusing on, shaping it yourself.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. I appreciate your time. Is there anything that you would like to end with that we haven't covered?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Well, I appreciate your guys' time, and I'm going to sign you guys off before I say a couple more words to everybody that's watching. I want to thank you for watching. I hope that you found this helpful and informative, especially if you are thinking about doing a total rebrand. It's a big endeavor, and you definitely need to have an expert there helping you. But just as you heard, even if you're not looking to do a full rebrand, there are still little parts of every company that could be improved to help not only the client or customer experience, but your team's experience. And I hope that you found it helpful with these suggestions so that you can go back and work on something that will add value to your brand. My name's Josh Hanish. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to follow me on LinkedIn, you can scan that QR code and stay up to date with other marketing trends. If you would like to join our email list, you can scan that QR code and join our email list and get one monthly email on marketing topics. It is not a sales email. I'll show my LinkedIn profile QR code one more time. Hope you have a great day. I'll talk with you.